My name is Serena. Here I share fictional stories shaped by mystery, suspense, and the darker corners of imagination. This isn't a place for explanations, it's a place for listening. Take a moment, stay with me, and let the story begin.
There are places in this world where memories go to die. Not the memories in your head, those fade naturally, mercifully. No, I'm talking about the physical remnants of lives lived and forgotten. Documents, photographs, letters written in hands that have long since turned to dust. The Blackwood Archive sits on the edge of the city like a tombstone. 7 stories of concrete and glass, filled with the accumulated detritus of 2 centuries, birth certificates, death records, property deeds, court transcripts, every piece of paper that proved someone existed, now filed away in climate-controlled rooms where no one ever visits. This is the story of Elena Reyes, an archivist who thought she understood the difference between the living and the dead. She was wrong. It's November 3rd, and Elena has just accepted a position she will come to regret. Chapter 1. The appointment. Elena had always been comfortable with the past. It didn't judge. It didn't demand anything except patience and careful hands. The dead were easy company. They never disappointed you. At 32 years old, she'd worked in archives across 3 states, university libraries, historical societies, municipal records departments. Each one had taught her something about the art of preservation, the science of cataloging, the quiet satisfaction of bringing order to chaos. But the Blackwood Archive was different. She'd known it the moment she walked through the doors for her interview. The building had been constructed in the 1930s, during that brief period when architects believed concrete could be beautiful. The interior was all harsh angles and echoing spaces, with narrow windows that seemed designed to keep light out rather than let it in. The position was for senior night archivista role that hadn't been filled in over a year. The job posting had been sparse on details but generous with compensation. Overnight shifts, Sunday through Thursday, minimal public interaction, primary duties, cataloging, preservation, and responding to research requests. Elena's interview had been conducted by Dr. Marcus Hall, the archive's director. He was a thin man in his 60s, with wire-rimmed glasses and hands that trembled slightly when he poured her coffee. "We've had difficulty retaining staff for the night position," he'd admitted, not quite meeting her eyes. "The work can be isolating. The building is quite large, and you'd be the only person here from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. "I prefer working alone," Elena had said, and it was true. People were complicated. Documents were not. Dr. Hall had studied her for a long moment, as if weighing whether to say something more. Then he'd simply nodded and offered her the job. That had been 3 weeks ago. Now, on her first night, Elena stood in the 7th floor cataloging room and tried to ignore the feeling that she was being watched. The room was vast, at least 50 feet on each side, filled with rows of metal shelving units that stretched from floor to ceiling. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a flat, colorless glow. In the center of the room sat her workstation, a heavy wooden desk, a computer that looked like it belonged in a museum itself, and a stack of boxes labeled priority processing. Dr. Hall had given her a brief orientation that afternoon, walking her through the building's 7 floors, each one devoted to different categories of records. The first floor held vital statistics, births and deaths from 1800 to the present. The second floor was property records. The third, court documents. The 4th through 6th floors contained what Dr. Hall called miscellaneous acquisitions, private collections donated by estates, historical societies, and individuals. The 7th floor, where Elena would be working, was different. "This is where we keep the uncatalogued material," Dr. Hall had explained, his voice echoing in the empty space. "Everything that hasn't been properly processed yet. Your job is to sort through it, create finding aids, and integrate it into our system." "How much material are we talking about?" Elena had asked. Dr. Hall had gestured vaguely at the rows of shelving. "Several hundred cubic feet, perhaps more. The previous archivists made limited progress." "How many previous archivists?" 7, Dr. Hall had said. In the last 18 months, Elena had wanted to ask why they'd left, but Dr. Hall had already been moving toward the elevator, his shoulders hunched as if against a cold wind. Now, alone on her first night, Elena opened the first box from the priority stack. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, loose and unorganized, dating from the early 1900s. Black and white images of families posed stiffly in front of houses, children in old-fashioned clothes, weddings, funerals, the usual detritus of lives lived and forgotten. Elena began the familiar process, examining each photo, noting details, checking for identifying information written on the backs. This one showed a family of 5 standing in front of a Victorian house. The father, stern and mustachioed. The mother, unsmiling in a high-collared dress. 3 children, ranging from perhaps 6 to 12 years old. She turned the photo over. In faded pencil, someone had written, "The Morrison family, 1897. May God have mercy." An odd inscription. Elena made a note and moved to the next photograph. It showed the same house, but this time the family was inside, visible through a window. The image was slightly blurred, as if taken from a distance or with an unsteady hand. Elena squinted at it, then reached for the magnifying glass she kept in her desk drawer. Through the magnification, she could see more detail. The family sat around a dinner table, frozen in the middle of a meal, but something was wrong with the image. The mother's head was turned at an impossible angle. One of the children appeared to be standing on the table, and in the background, barely visible in the darkness of a doorway, was another figure, someone or something that didn't belong. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She told herself it was just a trick of old photography, the slow exposure times and primitive equipment that sometimes produced strange effects. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she was looking at something she wasn't meant to see. She set the photo aside and reached for the next one. This time, there was no house, no family, just a close-up of a Pfizer woman's face, her eyes wide and mouth open in what might have been a scream or a laugh. The image was overexposed, bleached almost white, with deep shadows that turned the woman's features into something grotesque. On the back, she knew. Elena's hand trembled as she set down the photograph. This was just someone's idea of artistic photography, or maybe evidence from some old criminal case. Archives held all sorts of strange materials, nothing to be unsettled about. But when she reached for the 4th photograph, her phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. "Don't look at the rest." Elena stared at her phone. The message had no area code, no identifying information, just those 4 words. She looked around the empty cataloging room. The fluorescent lights hummed. The shelves stood silent. She was alone. The building was locked. Dr. Hall had made a point of showing her the security system motion sensors on every floor, cameras in the stairwells, magnetic locks on all the exterior doors. No one else was here. Elena deleted the message and returned to her work. A prank, she decided. Someone from the day shift who had her number and thought they were funny. But she didn't look at the rest of the photographs that night. Instead, she closed the box, set it aside, and moved on to the next container, a collection of letters that seemed blessedly ordinary. At midnight, she took her lunch break in the small staff room on the 6th floor. The building felt different at night. The daytime sounds, the hum of the elevator, the distant murmur of voices, the clicking of keyboards were all absent. In their place was a deep silence broken only by the occasional creak of settling concrete and the whisper of the ventilation system. Elena ate her sandwich and tried not to think about the photographs. She checked her phone, but there were no new messages, just the usual social media notifications and an email from her sister asking when she'd visit for Thanksgiving. She was about to head back upstairs when she heard it, a sound from somewhere below, soft but distinct, like footsteps on the marble floor of the main lobby. Elena froze, sandwiched halfway to her mouth. The building was locked. The security system was armed. She was alone, but there it was again, footsteps, slow and deliberate. Moving across the 1st floor, she pulled up the security app on her phone. Dr. Hall had given her access to check the cameras. She selected the 1st floor lobby view. The screen showed an empty room, marble floors gleaming under emergency lighting. The reception desk, the turnstiles, no movement, nothing, but she could still hear the footsteps. Elena stood and moved to the stairwell door, opening it carefully. The sound echoed up from below, clearer now. Not footsteps, she realized. Something being dragged, something heavy, pulled slowly across the floor. Then it stopped. Elena waited, barely breathing. 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, nothing. She closed the stairwell door and returned to the staff room. Old buildings made sounds, pipes expanding and contracting, the foundations settling, perfectly normal. But when she checked her phone again, there was a new message from the same unknown number. "It knows you're here now." Alina didn't go back to the 7th floor that night. She spent the rest of her shift in the staff room, door locked, telling herself she was just tired. First night jitters, nothing more. But when she left at 6 a.m., stepping out into the grey November dawn, she couldn't shake the feeling that something in the Blackwood archive had noticed her arrival, and it was not pleased. Chapter 2. The Finding. Alina almost didn't return for her second shift. She spent the day trying to convince herself that the text messages had been a prank. The sounds just a normal creaking of an old building. The photographs merely the product of primitive cameras and an overactive imagination. But the alternative was quitting a job she desperately needed. The rent on her apartment was due in 2 weeks. Her student loans weren't going to pay themselves. And how would she explain to future employers that she'd left a position after one night because she got scared? So on Sunday evening, she returned to the Blackwood archive. Dr. Hall was just leaving as she arrived. He looked even more tired than before, his face drawn and pale. "How was your first night?" he asked. "Fine," Alina lied. "Productive." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Good, good. The work is important. You understand? These documents, they need to be properly catalogued, properly filed. It's crucial that we maintain control over them." An odd way to phrase it. Alina wanted to ask what he meant, but Dr. Hall was already moving toward the parking lot, his shoulders hunched against the cold evening wind. Alina rode the elevator to the 7th floor and steeled herself before stepping into the cataloging room. It looked exactly as she'd left it. The boxes still sat on her desk. The fluorescent lights still hummed overhead. But now, in the dying light filtering through the narrow windows, the room seemed darker somehow, more oppressive. She forced herself to sit down and get to work. The box of photographs still sat where she'd left it, but she pushed it aside and reached for a different container. This one held what appeared to be journals' handwritten ledgers dating from the early 20th century. The entries were business records, she determined, transactions, purchases, sales. But as Alina flipped through the pages, she noticed something strange. Every 10th entry or so contained a name followed by a date and a single word. Processed. John Mitchell, March 12, 1923. Processed. Sarah Chen, July 7, 1924. Processed. Robert Devane, November 1, 1925. Processed. Processed for what? Alina made a note to research the origin of these ledgers. They might be employment records, though the phrasing was unusual. She was deep in concentration when she became aware of a smell. It started subtly, just a faint sweetness in the air, like flowers, but it grew stronger, more cloying, until Alina had to stop what she was doing and look around. The smell was coming from one of the shelving units against the far wall. Alina stood and walked toward it, following the scent. It led her to a section she hadn't examined yet, filled with large boxes labeled only with numbers. She pulled one down, number 347, and opened it. Inside were more photographs, but these were different from the ones she'd seen the night before. These were recent digital prints on glossy paper, and they all showed the same thing. This building, the Blackwood archive, taken from various angles and at different times of day. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all showing the exterior of the building. But in every single photograph, there was something in one of the 7th floor windows. A figure, dark and indistinct, but definitely there, standing, watching. Alina's hands began to shake. She flipped through the photos faster. Different seasons, different weather, different times of day, but always the figure in the window. Always on the 7th floor, always watching. She dropped the box. Photographs spilled across the floor. Her phone buzzed. Another message. "Do you see yourself?" Alina looked at the photos scattered at her feet. She picked up one at random, a shot taken on a sunny day, the building's windows reflecting blue sky. And there, in the 7th floor window, was the dark figure. She looked closer. The figure was wearing what looked like modern clothes, jeans, a shirt, and the posture. Alina's blood ran cold. The figure looked like her. She grabbed another photo. This one was dated. The metadata was still visible. September 15th. 2 months ago, weeks before she'd even applied for this job. But the figure in the window, it was her. Alina stumbled back, her mind racing. This was impossible. Some kind of trick. Photo manipulation. It had to be. But then she noticed something else. In one of the photos, the figure in the window was holding something. Alina brought the image close to her face, squinting. It was a piece of paper. And on it, Clearly visible, even in the photograph, were words, "Help me." Elena's phone rang, shattering the silence. She nearly dropped it in her panic. The screen showed the same unknown number that had been texting her. She answered, "Hello." Static hissed in her ear. Then, barely audible beneath the noise, her voice, "Don't stay on the 7th floor." The call disconnected. Elena ran. She didn't think about it, didn't rationalize it. She just ran, out of the cataloging room, to the stairs, down flight after flight until she burst out into the 1st floor lobby. The motion sensor lights flickered on, illuminating empty space. Elena stood in the center of the marble floor, breathing hard, trying to calm her racing heart. This was insane. She was letting her imagination run wild. There had to be a rational explanation for everything. The photographs were old, mislabeled. The voice on the phone was someone playing a cruel prank. The smell was just mold or cleaning chemicals. She pulled out her phone to call Dr. Hall, to tell him she was leaving. But before she could dial, she noticed something. On the wall behind the reception desk was a series of photographs. Employee photos, she realized. Past directors and staff members of the Blackwood Archive, dating back decades. Elena walked closer, studying them. There were the directors, stern-faced men and women in formal attire, each labeled with their name and years of service. And below them, smaller photos of various staff members. Elena's eyes traveled across the images, reading names and dates. And then she froze, because there, in a photograph dated 1973, was a face she recognized. Dr. Marcus Hall, looking exactly as he did now. Not younger, not different, exactly the same. The same wire-rimmed glasses, the same thin face, the same hands, visible in the photo as he held what looked like a ledger. Elena looked at the caption, Dr. Marcus Hall, Chief Archivist, 1973 to 1985, but she'd met Dr. Hall. She'd shaken his hand 3 weeks ago. He couldn't be the same person in a photograph from 50 years ago, unless... Her phone buzzed again. "We're all archived here. The question is, can you escape before you join us?" Elena looked up at the 7 stories of the Blackwood Archive rising above her. In every window she could see now, faint but unmistakable, were figures, standing, watching, waiting for her to return to the 7th floor. Because, somehow, impossibly, she already had. Chapter 3. The patterns. Elena didn't leave the building. She wanted to, God, how she wanted to, but when she tried the front doors, they wouldn't open. Not locked. Worse, they opened onto the same lobby she was already standing in. She'd stumbled back, heart hammering, and tried again. Same result. The door opened. She saw the lobby, identical to the one behind her. She ran to the emergency exit. Same thing. Every door, every possible exit, led right back to where she started. She was trapped inside a building that had become a loop, a closed system that refused to let her leave. So Elena did the only thing she could think of. She began to investigate. If this was real, if the Blackwood Archive really was some kind of trap, then there had to be evidence, documentation. Archives didn't just collect random materials. There was always a system, always an organizing principle. She started on the 1st floor, in the vital statistics room. Birth certificates and death certificates, filed chronologically from 1800 to the present. Elena pulled files at random, looking for patterns. At first, everything seemed normal. Standard records, properly formatted, the usual information about births and deaths in the city. But then she noticed something odd. Some of the death certificates had a stamp she'd never seen before, a small circular mark in the corner, almost like a seal. And every certificate with that stamp had the same cause of death listed. Natural causes. Elena pulled more files, more stamps, more natural causes. She cross-referenced the names with the ledgers she'd seen on the 7th floor. The processed entries, every single match. John Mitchell died March 13, 1923, natural causes, processed. Sarah Chen died July 8, 1924, natural causes, processed. Robert Devane died November 2, 1925, natural causes, processed. All dead within 24 hours of being processed. Elena felt sick. This wasn't just an archive, it was a record of something terrible. But what? A murder spree spanning a century, some kind of conspiracy. She moved to the 2nd floor. Property records. Here, she found more patterns. Buildings that had been seized, foreclosed, or condemned, all stamped with the same circular seal. And when she checked the dates, they aligned with the processed names. John Mitchell's house, seized March 15, 1923. Sarah Chun's apartment building, condemned July 10, 1924. Robert Devane's shop, foreclosed November 4, 1925. As if someone had been systematically taking everything from these people, including their lives. Elena's phone buzzed. She jumped, then looked at the screen. Another message. "You're beginning to understand." She typed back, "What is this place?" The response came immediately. A collection of lives, of memories, of souls. The archive doesn't just store records, it stores us. Who are you? I was the sixth night archivist. Before I was processed, before I became part of the collection. My name was Jennifer Hale. I'm trying to help you. Elena's hands shook as she typed. How do I get out? Find the original contract, the document that created the archive. It's on the 4th floor, in the restricted collection. That's where the answers are. And then what? Then you'll know what choice you have to make. Elena didn't want to know what that meant, but she headed to the stairs anyway. The 4th floor was designated for special collections, materials that required restricted access. Elena had the security code Dr. Hall had given her during orientation. The 4th floor was darker than the others. The motion sensors seemed slower to respond, leaving her standing in shadow for long seconds before the lights flickered on. The space was divided into smaller rooms, each one climate-controlled and secured with keypads. Elena found the room labeled Administrative Records and punched in her code. The lock clicked open. Inside were filing cabinets made of dark wood, old and heavy. Elena pulled open drawers at random, scanning labels, board meeting minutes, budget reports, personnel files, and then, in the bottom drawer of the last cabinet, she found a leather-bound volume labeled Founding Documents. Elena lifted it out with trembling hands. The leather was ancient, cracked, and brittle. She set it carefully on a nearby table and opened it. The first page was a title page, ornately decorated. The Blackwood Archive, Charter and Purpose. Established 1897, the same year as the Morrison family photograph. Elena turned the page and began to read. The document was written in the formal language of the 19th century, full of harasses and heretofores, but the meaning was clear enough. The Blackwood Archive had been established by a collective of wealthy families in the city, the Blackbits, the Morrisons, the Halls, and others. Its stated purpose was to preserve the memory and achievements of our line for all posterity. But there was more, a secondary clause, written in smaller text, and furthermore, that this archive shall serve as a repository not merely of documents and artifacts, but of the essential essence of those who have served the founding families and their interests. That through the science of preservation and the art of documentation, the archive shall hold in perpetuity the complete record of each life entrusted to its care, including that spark which animates the mortal form, so that none shall be truly lost, but rather kept safe within these walls for all time. Elena read it 3 times, trying to make sense of the flowery language, the essential essence, the spark that animates. They were talking about souls. The Blackwood Archive wasn't just preserving documents, it was preserving people, trapping them somehow, binding them to the building, keeping them as part of the collection. She turned more pages, finding lists, names of people who had been archived over the decades, hundreds of them, thousands, all stamped with that circular seal, all classified as permanent acquisitions, and at the end, a section titled Protocol for Archive Staff. Elena's blood ran cold as she read. Night archivists shall serve for a period not to exceed 90 days, after which they shall be offered the choice of release or permanent incorporation into the collection. Those who choose release shall retain no memory of their service. Those who choose incorporation shall become eternal guardians of the archive. Their consciousness merged with the building itself, their duty to preserve and protect the collection in perpetuity. 90 days. Elena pulled out her phone and checked the calendar. November 3rd. She'd started on November 3rd. She had 90 days before she had to choose between losing her memories or losing herself. Her phone buzzed. Now you know. But there's still time. The previous archivists who left, they chose release. They're alive, out there, living normal lives. They just don't remember any of this. You can still escape. Elena typed. How? Find Dr. Hall. He's the key. He chose incorporation decades ago. He's the oldest consciousness in the archive. If you can convince him to let you go early, Before the 90 days are up, you can get out. You can be free. Where is he? Where he always is. The 7th floor, waiting. Alina looked at the stairwell door, 7 floors up, back to where this had all started. But what choice did she have? She closed the founding document, left the restricted room, and headed for the stairs. With each floor she climbed, the air grew thicker, harder to breathe. The lights seemed dimmer, the walls seemed closer. By the time she reached the 7th floor, she felt like she was moving through water. Every step required effort. Every breath was a conscious choice. The cataloging room door stood open, light spilling out into the dark hallway. Alina stepped through. Dr. Hall sat at her desk, his back to her, studying the photographs she'd abandoned. "You found the truth," he said, without turning around. His voice was different now, older, tired. "They always do eventually. That's why we give you 90 days. Time enough to understand. Time enough to choose wisely." "Let me go," Alina said. "Please, I don't want to be part of this." Dr. Hall finally turned. In the harsh fluorescent light, she could see that he wasn't quite solid anymore. She could see through him, just slightly, as if he were a projection or a hologram. "I can't let you go," he said. "Not yet. The 90 days exist for a reason. The archive needs time to attune to you, to copy you. If you leave too soon, it doesn't work properly. You'll remember fragments. You'll be haunted by what you've seen. You'll never be whole again. I'll take that risk. Will you?" Dr. Hall stood and walked toward her. With each step, he became more solid, more real. Because the others who tried to leave early, they didn't fare well. Some went mad. Some took their own lives. The ones who made it the full 90 days, they're fine. They're happy. They don't remember any of this nightmare. "You chose to stay," Alina said. "Why?" Dr. Hall smiled, and for the first time, Alina saw a genuine emotion in his face. Sadness, longing, because someone I loved chose to stay. My wife, she was one of the first archivists, back in 1972. She chose incorporation, and I couldn't bear to leave her here alone. So I joined her, and for 50 years, we've been together, part of this place, eternal, unchanging, together. "That's not life," Alina whispered. "No," Dr. Hall agreed. "But it's not death either. It's something in between. And after a while, you forget there was ever a difference." Alina backed toward the door. "I'll take my chances. I'm leaving now, tonight." "You can't," Dr. Hall said. "The building won't let you. Not until you make your choice. And that choice requires the full 90 days. Then I'll break out. I'll smash a window. I'll do whatever it takes. Others have tried. The building always brings them back." Alina turned and ran. She didn't have a plan, just blind panic driving her forward. Down the stairs, all 7 flights, her footsteps echoing in the concrete shaft, into the lobby, to the front doors. This time, when she opened them, she didn't see the lobby. She saw darkness, absolute and complete. A void where the outside world should have been. Alina stood on the threshold, staring into nothing. Behind her, the lights of the archive hummed steadily. Ahead, only emptiness. "Make your choice," Dr. Hall's voice whispered from everywhere and nowhere. 90 days, and you can leave with your mind intact, or step through now and lose yourself in ways we can't predict. Alina looked back at the building that had trapped her. 7 stories of concrete and secrets, a collection of lives, stolen and preserved. And then she looked forward, into the void. She had to choose, stay and wait, knowing what was coming, or leave now and risk losing everything that made her who she was. Alina took a breath and stepped forward into darkness. Chapter 4. The Lost. The void was cold. Not the cold of winter or ice, but the absolute absence of warmth. Alina felt it seep into her bones as she moved through the darkness. Each step an act of faith because she couldn't see where she was going. Behind her, the light from the archive doorway grew smaller, more distant. Ahead, nothing but emptiness. And then, without warning, the ground disappeared beneath her feet. Alina fell. She tumbled through space with no sense of up or down, her stomach lurching, her mind screaming. This fall seemed to last forever and no time at all. When she finally hit something solid, it knocked the breath from her lungs and left her gasping on cold concrete. Slowly, Alina pushed herself to her knees and looked around. She was in a corridor. Grey walls, fluorescent lights, linoleum floor. It looked like a hospital hallway or maybe a school. Institutional, anonymous, and completely unfamiliar. Alina stood on shaking legs and tried to orient herself. Which direction had she come from? Where was she going? The corridor stretched in both directions, identical, offering no clues. She chose left and started walking. The corridor went on far longer than seemed possible. Alina walked for what felt like hours, passing closed doors with no labels, no numbers, no way to know what lay beyond them. Sometimes she tried a handle, but the doors were always locked. After what might have been a mile, the corridor ended at a stairwell. Alina looked up through the gap between flights and saw stairs rising into shadow. She looked down and saw stairs descending the same way, up or down. Another choice. She chose down. The stairs went on and on, flight after flight, until Alina lost count. Her legs ached, her breath came in gasps. But she kept descending because going back up seemed even worse. Finally, the stairs ended at a door. Alina pushed it open and found herself in a vast room filled with filing cabinets. Thousands of them, tens of thousands, stretching away in perfectly straight rows as far as she could see. Each cabinet was identical gray metal, 5 drawers, a small label holder on the front. But the labels were blank. Alina walked down the nearest aisle, trailing her fingers along the smooth metal surfaces. What was stored here? More records, more stolen lives. She stopped at a random cabinet and pulled open the top drawer. Inside were photographs, hundreds of them, filling the drawer completely. Alina picked one up and felt her heart stop. It was a photo of her, but not any photo she remembered taking. In the image, she was sitting in the cataloging room on the 7th floor, working at her desk. The photo had been taken from behind, showing the back of her head and the computer screen in front of her. Alina dropped the photo and pulled out another. Same location, different angle. This one showed her face in profile, illuminated by the glow of the computer. She grabbed a handful of photos, all taken in the archive, without her knowledge. Some showed her on the 7th floor, others showed her in the stairwell, in the lobby, in the staff room. A complete record of her time in the building, documented by invisible watchers. Alina slammed the drawer shut and backed away from the cabinet, but her eyes caught the label holder, which now had text where there had been none before. Alina Reyes. Acquisition in progress. She ran to another cabinet, pulled open a drawer. More photographs, but these showed someone else, a young man she didn't recognize. The label read, Michael Torres, processed 1998. Another cabinet, Jennifer Hale, processed October 15th, the 6th night archivist, the one who had been texting her. Alina pulled out photos from Jennifer's file. They showed the same progression. First, images of a woman working at the 7th floor desk, unaware she was being documented. Then images that became stranger, Jennifer looking transparent, fading. And finally, images of the empty desk, with just a shadow where Jennifer should have been. The last photo in the drawer showed a death certificate. Jennifer Hale, cause of death, natural causes, date, October 16th. The day after she was processed. Alina felt bile rise in her throat. This was what happened to people who stayed too long. They didn't just become part of the archive's consciousness. They died. Their physical bodies ceased to exist, and only their trapped consciousness remained, bound to the building forever. And she had 90 days before the same thing happened to her. Unless she could find a way out of this void. Alina moved through the room of cabinets, searching for something, anything, that might help her. She found files on all 7 previous night archivists, all processed, all dead, and beyond them, files on hundreds of others, dating back decades. And then she found a cabinet labeled Directors. Alina pulled open the top drawer and found Dr. Marcus Hall's file. It was thicker than the others, spanning multiple drawers. She pulled out the oldest photographs first. They showed a young man, maybe 30 years old, standing outside the Blackwood archive in what looked like the early 1970s. He was smiling, holding a briefcase, apparently arriving for his first day of work. The next photos showed him inside the building, working at a desk, shelving books, speaking with other staff members, normal archival work. But then the photos changed. They showed him on the 7th floor, late at night, looking at something in his hands. Alina squinted at the image and realized what he was holding. The founding document, the same leather-bound volume she'd read. The subsequent photos showed a progression. Dr. Hall looking thinner, more pale, slightly transparent in the same way Jennifer's photos had shown. He was being processed, slowly absorbed into the archive's collection. But unlike the others, Dr. Hall's process never completed. The photos showed him reaching a certain level of transparency and then stopping, frozen at that threshold between living and archived. Alina found a document paperclipped to one of the later photos. It was a contract, signed in Dr. Hall's handwriting. I, Marcus Hall, do hereby accept the position of Eternal Director of the Blackwood Archive. I understand that this role requires my consciousness to merge partially with the archive's essential structure, allowing me to serve as administrator and guardian in perpetuity. I accept this duty willingly, in exchange for the preservation of my beloved wife, who has already been incorporated into the collection. So that was the truth. Dr. Hall had made a deal. He'd allowed himself to be partially archived, trapped between life and death, in exchange for keeping his wife's consciousness preserved within the building. And now he was perpetuating the system, hiring new archivists, processing them, feeding them to the archive to keep it alive. Elena's phone buzzed in her pocket. Impossible, because she had no signal here, wherever here was. But when she pulled it out, there was a message. You're in the between place, the space that exists in the moment of choice. When someone tries to leave the archive before their 90 days are up, they fall into here. Most never find their way out, but there is a path. Find the file labeled Exits. It will show you the way. Alina looked around at the endless rows of cabinets. Finding one specific file in this vast space would take days, weeks, maybe longer, but she had to try. She started searching, pulling open drawers at random, scanning labels. Most contained names of archived individuals, but occasionally she found other labels, maintenance records, acquisition protocols, processing procedures. After what might have been hours' time seemed meaningless, here she found a drawer labeled Architectural Plans. Alina pulled it open and found blueprints, hundreds of them, showing the Blackwood Archive from every angle. Floor plans, electrical systems, plumbing, ventilation, and at the bottom of the drawer, a set of plans labeled Emergency Exits. Alina spread them out on top of a nearby cabinet. The blueprints showed the archive's 7 floors in detail, and marked in red ink were exit points, not the normal doors and stairwells, but hidden passages built into the structure. Secret ways out. Most were marked with X's, crossed out, but one, on the 3rd floor, had a circle around it and a note in tiny handwriting, still accessible, use in case of fire or other emergency. The 3rd floor. Court documents. Alina had been there on her first day during the orientation, but she wasn't in the archive anymore. She was in the void, the between place, with no idea how to get back. Her phone buzzed again. The between place is a reflection of the archive. The same layout, the same floors. You're not as lost as you think. Find the stairs. Go up. Alina looked around the vast room of cabinets. It was the same size and shape as the cataloging room on the 7th floor, which meant the door she'd come through was the equivalent of the archive stairwell entrance. She retraced her steps, found the door, and stepped back into the grey corridor. But this time, instead of walking horizontally, she looked for stairs. And there they were, right where they should be. The same stairwell she'd used in the real archive, only here it was empty and silent, and somehow wrong. Alina began to climb. She passed the 6th floor, the 5th, the 4th. At the 3rd floor landing, she stopped and pushed open the door. The space beyond was another maze of filing cabinets, arranged in the same layout as the archive's 3rd floor. But these cabinets didn't contain court documents. They contained something else. Alina moved through the aisles until she found the location marked on the blueprint, the southeast corner of the room. According to the plans, there should be a hidden panel here, leading to an emergency exit. She ran her hands along the wall, searching for seams, for anything that might indicate a hidden door. Her fingers found a slight depression, no bigger than a quarter. She pressed it. A section of wall swung inward, revealing a narrow passageway. Alina stepped through into darkness. She used her phone's flashlight to illuminate the way ahead, a cramped corridor with rough concrete walls, clearly not meant for regular use. The passage sloped downward. Alina followed it, hunched over to avoid hitting her head on the low ceiling. After 50 feet or so, the passage ended at a ladder bolted to the wall. Leading up, she climbed. 20 rungs, 30, 40. Her arms burned with the effort, but she kept going. At the top was a hatch. Alina braced herself against the ladder with one arm and pushed the hatch with the other. It was heavy, resisting at first, then suddenly giving way with a screech of rusted hinges. Fresh air hit her face. Real air, cold and sharp and smelling of rain. Elena hauled herself up through the hatch and found herself outside. She was in an alley behind a building. Looking up, she recognized the back of the Blackwood Archive, its 7 stories rising against a grey sky. But the building looked different, faded, run down. Some of the windows were broken, and graffiti covered the lower walls. Elena checked her phone. November 4th. Only 1 day had passed since she'd entered the void, though it had felt like much longer. She'd escaped, she was out. But as she started to walk away, to leave the archive behind forever, she heard something that made her stop. Her own voice, calling from one of the broken windows above. "Help me." Elena looked up and saw a figure standing in the 7th floor window. It was her, or something that looked like her, trapped inside, still working at the desk she'd abandoned. Because leaving early had consequences. Dr. Hall had warned her. The archive had already started copying her consciousness, and that copy was still in there, still trapped, experiencing her 90 days whether Elena's physical body was present or not. She had escaped, but part of her was still archived. Elena turned away from the building and ran. She didn't look back. Chapter 5. The Return. 3 weeks passed. Elena told herself she'd done the right thing. She'd escaped. She was alive. She had her freedom. But the dreams wouldn't stop. Every night, she dreamed she was back in the cataloging room on the 7th floor, working at the desk, processing documents, and in the dreams, she could feel something growing stronger inside her, a presence that wasn't quite her, but wasn't quite separate either. Her archived self, still trapped in the building, calling to her. During the day, Elena tried to live normally. She got a new job at a public library. She told her friends and family she'd left the Blackwood Archive because it wasn't a good fit. She tried to forget, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd left something important behind. Not just part of her consciousness, something else. Some responsibility she hadn't fulfilled. On the morning of November 25th, Elena woke from another nightmare about the archive and made a decision. She had to go back. Not to stay. Not to be processed, but to finish what she'd started. To find a way to shut the archive down, to free all the consciousnesses trapped inside, including her own partial copy. She spent the day researching. The Blackwood Archive had a public face, a small website, a few references in historical records. But digging deeper, Elena found something interesting. The building was owned by a trust, managed by descendants of the founding families, and that trust had a meeting scheduled for the following week, on December 1st. To discuss the archive's future operations. Elena made some calls. She claimed to be a researcher interested in the archive's history. She asked questions about the trust, about the founding families, about the building's original purpose. And slowly, she began to piece together a larger picture. The Blackwood Archive wasn't the only such place. There were others, scattered across the country, buildings that served as repositories for more than just documents. Places where the wealthy and powerful had found ways to preserve themselves and their interests beyond death, using methods that shouldn't be possible. The founding families had discovered some things on technique, some rituals that allowed consciousness to be bound to physical locations, and they'd been using it for over a century to maintain their influence, their control, their presence in the world, even after their bodies died. The archives were nodes in a network, and the Blackwood Archive was one of the oldest, one of the most powerful. If Elena could expose this, could bring it to light, maybe she could force the system to shut down, free everyone trapped inside. But she'd need proof, documentation, evidence that couldn't be dismissed as delusion or fraud. And that evidence was inside the archive. On November 30th, Elena returned to the building. It was late afternoon, during normal business hours. She walked through the front door like any other visitor and signed in at the reception desk. "I'm here to do some research," she told the receptionist, a young man she didn't recognize. Court records from the 1920s. He gave her a visitor badge and directed her to the 3rd floor. Elena took the elevator up, her heart pounding. The building felt different during the day, more normal, but she could still feel it watching her, aware of her presence. She went to the 3rd floor and pretended to browse the court record files. But what she was really looking for was the hidden passage she'd used to escape, the emergency exit. She found it exactly where it had been in the void, the southeast corner, behind a row of filing cabinets that must have been moved during business hours to hide the access point. Elena waited until the floor was empty, then slipped into the narrow corridor. She didn't go down this time. Instead, she went up, climbing through the hidden spaces between floors. following ductwork and cable runs, until she found herself in the walls of the 7th floor. Through gaps in the old plaster, she could see into the cataloging room. It was empty. There was no night archivist currently employed to replace her. The boxes sat undisturbed on the desk. Everything looked exactly as she'd left it. But when Elena looked closer, she saw something that made her blood run cold. At the desk, visible only when the light hit at a certain angle, was a shadow. A human-shaped shadow, sitting in the chair, bent over the desk, going through the motions of work. Her archived self, still carrying out the duties she'd abandoned. Elena forced herself to look away and continue through the walls. She was looking for the archives core, the place where the founding document was kept, where the original ritual had been performed, where the binding magic or technology or whatever it was originated. According to the blueprints she'd studied, there should be a central shaft running through all 7 floors, like the spine of the building, and in the basement, beneath even the 1st floor, was a space that had no official purpose. No label, just empty space on the plans. That's where she needed to go. Elena found a maintenance shaft and climbed down. The ladder was old, the rungs slick with moisture. She descended past the 1st floor into darkness until her feet touched concrete at the bottom. She turned on her phone's flashlight and looked around. She was in a circular chamber about 30 feet in diameter. The walls were rough stone, not finished concrete. This space predated the building above it. At the center of the chamber was a raised platform, and on the platform sat something that looked like a large book, bound in what might have been leather or might have been something else. Elena approached slowly. As she got closer, she could feel something emanating from the book. Not heat, not cold, but a presence, an awareness. This was the archive's heart, the original binding. Elena reached out to touch it, then hesitated. If she opened this book, what would happen? Would it trap her like it had trapped the others? Or would it give her the power to free them? Her phone buzzed. A message from the unknown number. Jennifer, the 6th archivist, still trying to help from within her digital prison. Don't open it. That's what it wants. That's how it binds you completely. Take photos, document everything, then get out. You can't fight it from inside. You have to expose it from outside. Elena took a shaky breath and pulled out her phone. She photographed the chamber from every angle. The stone walls with their strange markings, the platform, the book itself, which seemed to resist photography, appearing blurred and indistinct in every image. She was about to leave when she noticed something. Carved into the stone floor around the platform were names, hundreds of them, tiny texts spiraling outward in concentric circles. The names of everyone who had been archived, and at the very center, directly beneath the book, were 7 names. The founding families: Blackwood, Morrison, Hall, Chen, Torres, Devane, Mitchell, the same names from the ledgers. The first people to be processed. They hadn't been victims. They'd been willing participants. The founding families had turned themselves into the Archives Foundation, sacrificing their living selves to become something else, something eternal. And everyone processed since then was just fuel, feeding the system, keeping it alive. Elena photographed everything, her hands shaking. This was the evidence she needed, proof of what the archive really was. She climbed back up the maintenance shaft, retraced her route through the walls, and emerged on the 3rd floor. The building was closing for the day. Staff members were leaving, shutting down computers, locking doors. Elena joined them, badge in hand, just another researcher finishing up for the day. But as she reached the front lobby, she saw Dr. Hall standing by the reception desk. He looked solid today, fully present, and his eyes locked onto hers with the intensity of someone who knew exactly what she'd done. "Ms. Reyes," he said, his voice carrying across the marble floor. "Might I have a word?" Elena could run, should run, but something made her stop. "You found a heart," Dr. Hall said quietly, moving toward her. "I can always tell when someone's been down there. You carry the smell of it. Old stone, old magic." "It's not magic," Elena said. "It's something worse. It's choice. You all chose this. You made yourselves into monsters and convinced everyone else it was inevitable." Dr. Hall smiled sadly. "Is that what you think? That we're monsters? We're preservationists, Elena. We saw what happens to people when they die. Everything they were, everything they learned, everything they could have been, just gone, lost forever. We found a way to save it, to save ourselves. Is that really so terrible?" "You're trapping people," Elena said, "taking their lives, their futures. Everything they could have been in the real world. And what is the real world? Dr. Hall asked. Decay, forgetting, death. Here, we're eternal. Here, we're safe. Your archived self understands that now. She's happy, content. Would you really want to destroy her? Alina thought of the shadow at the desk. Her other self, still working, still trapped. Yes, she said, because she deserves to be free, even if that means not existing at all. That's better than this. Dr. Hall's expression hardened. Then you've made your choice, and so have I. He raised his hand, and Alina felt something shift in the building around her. The lights dimmed, the air grew thick. She tried to run for the door, but her legs wouldn't move. She was frozen, trapped in place. You can't leave now, Dr. Hall said. Not with what you know. Not with what you've documented. The archive can't allow it. Alina struggled against the invisible force holding her. Through the front windows, she could see the street beyond. People walking past, cars driving by. The normal world, so close and yet impossibly far away. Jennifer tried this too, Dr. Hall said. She thought she could expose us, but the archive protected itself. It always does. You'll stay here, Alina. You'll become part of the collection, just like everyone else. Your 90 days are up anyway. Tomorrow is December 1st, day 90. Time for you to choose. Elena's phone slipped from her numb fingers and clattered on the marble floor. Through her frozen eyelids, she saw a final message on the screen. I'm sorry, I tried to help. But some prisons you can't escape from outside. You have to burn them down from within. And Alina understood. The photos she'd taken, the documentation, it wasn't meant to expose the archive to the outside world. It was meant to destroy it from within. Chapter 6. The burning Alina couldn't move her body, but her mind was still her own. And in that mind, a plan formed. If the archive was a collection of bound consciousnesses, then it was like a computer network, a system with nodes and connections. And every system had vulnerabilities. Dr. Hall had said her archived self was happy, content, but Alina knew better. That shadow self was still her, in every way that mattered. And if Alina could communicate with her, could convince her to act, then maybe they could fight the archive from two fronts at once. Alina focused all her will on that connection. She could feel it, a thin thread linking her to her archived self, stretched across space and consciousness. She followed that thread, sending a message. Asterisk, I need your help. Asterisk, for a long moment, nothing. Then, like an echo, a response. Asterisk, I'm not real. I'm just a copy, a shadow. Asterisk, asterisk, you're real enough to make choices, and right now, I need you to choose to fight. Asterisk, another pause. Then, asterisk, how? Asterisk, asterisk, the book, the heart. You're inside the building, you can reach it, and you have the one thing I don't cure already part of the archive system. You can work from within. Asterisk, Alina felt her archived self's fear, her hesitation, but also her anger, the rage of someone who'd been trapped, used, turned into something she never consented to be. Asterisk, what do I need to do? Asterisk, asterisk, find the chamber, find the book, and burn it. Asterisk, the connection wavered, then steadied. Asterisk, if I destroy the heart, won't that destroy everyone? All the archived consciousnesses. Asterisk, asterisk, yes. Asterisk, Alina admitted. Asterisk, but it will also free them. No more trap, no more prison, just peace. Asterisk, she felt her archived self. Consider this, weigh the cost, make the choice. Asterisk, all right. Asterisk, the shadow, Alina said. Asterisk, but you need to do something too. From outside, the archive is old. Its power comes from the founding document, but it's maintained by the building itself. If you can damage the structure, really damage it at the same time I attack the heart, we might be able to break the binding. Asterisk, asterisk, how? Asterisk, asterisk, fire. That's what Jennifer meant. You have to burn it down. Asterisk, Alina looked at Dr. Hall, who stood watching her with that sad, patient expression. He didn't know she was communicating with her archived self, didn't know they were planning an attack, but she couldn't move, couldn't reach her phone to call for help, couldn't do anything physical, except one thing. She still had partial control over her breathing, and she'd seen, during her exploration of the building, that the old ventilation system used natural gas for heating. If she could cause a leak, create enough gas buildup, then any spark would ignite it. Alina focused on the connection to her archived self again. Asterisk, I need you to find the mechanical room. Basement level. below the chamber. There's a gas line. If you can damage it, I'll do it. Her shadow self interrupted. But you need to get out. Once the gas ignites, this whole building will go up. I'm frozen. Dr. Hall won't let me move. Then I'll have to unfreeze you. The archive responds to will, to intention. If enough of us, enough of the archived consciousnesses, push back at once, we might be able to override his control. I'll rally them. Give me 2 minutes. Alina felt the connection break as her shadow self went to work. She stood frozen in the lobby, Dr. Hall watching her, waiting for her to accept her fate. But inside the building, invisible to living eyes, something was happening. Archived consciousnesses were waking up. Hundreds of them, trapped for decades, suddenly aware that there might be a way out, a final choice, not incorporation or release, but destruction, freedom through annihilation. And they were choosing it. Alina felt the building begin to shake. Not physically, structurally, it remained stable. But the archive's foundation, the network of bound souls, was rebelling, refusing to maintain the system, pulling back their energy. Dr. Hall felt it too. His expression changed from patient to alarmed. What are you doing? What is she? The invisible force holding Alina suddenly released. She stumbled forward, caught herself, and ran. Behind her, Dr. Hall shouted, but his voice sounded weaker, less solid. The archive was failing. The consciousnesses that had powered it were withdrawing their support. Alina burst through the front doors into the cold November evening. She ran across the street, putting distance between herself and the building, then pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "There's a gas leak at the Blackwood archive," she said when the operator answered. "The whole building needs to be evacuated. I think it's going to explode." She gave the address, then hung up and kept running. Behind her, she heard the sound of glass breaking. The 7th floor windows were shattering, one by one, as the archived consciousnesses tore themselves free from their prison. They were destroying themselves to destroy the archive, choosing oblivion over eternal captivity. Alina ran until she reached the next block, then turned back to watch. The Blackwood archive stood silent for a moment. 7 stories of concrete and secrets, holding its breath. Then, from deep inside the building, came a sound like thunder. The explosion started in the basement, where her shadow self had ruptured the gas line. It bloomed upward, floor by floor, each level igniting in sequence. Windows blew outward in sheets of glass, walls cracked and crumbled. The roof collapsed inward. In 30 seconds, the entire structure was engulfed in flames. Emergency vehicles were already approaching, their sirens wailing in the night. But there was nothing they could do. The building was lost, and with it, every consciousness that had been trapped inside. Alina stood on the sidewalk and watched the archive burn. She thought she could hear voices in the roar of the flames. Hundreds of voices, finally freed, singing as they dissipated into smoke and ash. Her shadow self was among them. That copy of Alina, her anger and her fear and her hope, was burning away to nothing, and somehow, that felt right. Better to not exist at all than to exist as a prisoner. The fire burned through the night. By dawn, nothing remained of the Blackwood archive except a blackened shell and mountains of rubble. Fire investigators would spend weeks trying to determine the cause. They'd find evidence of the gas leak, but would never quite be able to explain how it had spread so quickly, so completely. Alina gave a statement to the police. She'd been doing research in the building when she'd smelled gas. She'd evacuated and called for help. She hadn't seen anyone else inside. Thank God. No casualties except the building itself. They believed her. Why wouldn't they? She was just a researcher, a civilian, someone who'd done the right thing and reported a problem. The trust that owned the building tried to suppress the story, but it was too big, too public. The complete destruction of a historic building drew attention from preservationists, historians, and journalists. Questions were asked about maintenance, about safety protocols, about who was responsible. And in the process of investigating, people found things. Financial records showing suspicious payments, property documents revealing a pattern of acquisitions that didn't make sense, census records with inconsistencies, people who appeared in multiple decades, always the same age. The network of archives began to unravel. Other buildings, in other cities, came under scrutiny. Some closed voluntarily, others were forcibly shut down by authorities. The techniques that had allowed consciousnesses to be bound to physical locations were lost. the knowledge dying with those who'd practiced it. Within a year, the entire system had collapsed. Epilogue. 6 months after the fire, Alina sat in a new apartment, in a new city, working a normal job at a normal library. She'd moved on, put it behind her, except she hadn't, not entirely, because sometimes, late at night, she still felt that connection, that thread linking her to her shadow self. It should have been severed when the archive burned, but occasionally, just for a moment, she felt something, a presence, an awareness that wasn't quite her own. Maybe consciousness couldn't be completely destroyed. Maybe those archived souls hadn't dissipated into nothing. Maybe they'd just been freed to go somewhere else, somewhere beyond buildings and bindings and physical limitations. Alina liked to think so. She liked to think that her shadow self was out there somewhere, finally free, finally able to explore an existence that wasn't limited by walls and windows and endless filing cabinets. And sometimes, when Alina closed her eyes and concentrated, she could almost hear her shadow self's voice, whispering across that impossible distance. Asterisk, thank you. Asterisk, closing. The Blackwood archive is gone now. The lot where it stood has been cleared and sold to developers. Soon there will be condominiums there, or maybe office space. Something modern and clean, with no memory of what came before. But if you know where to look, you can still find traces, records and other archives, scattered across a dozen institutions. Birth certificates and death certificates that don't quite match up. Property transfers that make no sense. Names that appear again and again, century after century. The founding families tried to make themselves immortal. In a way, they succeeded, not through preservation, but through the holes they left in history, the inconsistencies and impossibilities that mark where they tried to cheat death. And maybe that's a kind of immortality after all. Not existence, but influence, the shape of an absence, haunting the records forever. Sleep well, but remember, not every building is what it seems, and not every archive just stores documents. Some collect something far more precious and far more dangerous.
If this story stayed with you, you're always welcome here. Subscribe to the channel and join us for more stories like this. Quiet, mysterious, and meant to be heard. Until next time.